comes to this maximalist versus kind of toxic view of the crypto space, what I wanted to share is just some research I've been doing about a few exciting things that are happening with Bitcoin. First of all, the ability to do these DLCs, or discrete log contracts. These are external contracts that allow basically smart contract capabilities on Bitcoin. Now they're actually implemented today, as you see in this was a presentation by a couple of the guys that are core developers in it, and is it shared bits, I believe. But this allows, direct smart contract capabilities on Bitcoin itself, and also enhances Lightning Network. Now it's really powerful when combined with Taproot's Schnorr signatures, but the Schnorr signatures and the DLCs are external to Bitcoin today. So if you see here, look at a white paper was published. I was reading through that. I still haven't finished my research on it, but I wanted to go live and talk about this price action. But I wanted to share some things here around this technology and where it's at. So this is going to allow, again, if you're on a second layer external, so this is an Oracle-based solution, which means it uses external data to the chain. So it's not on-chain, it's an external capability, but this will allow smart contracts to be written. And basically, if I were to sum it up, what this is going to do is allow people to, multiple parties to agree on terms, and then what they do is they sign this Oracle with these Schnorr signatures, which if, let's say you had two people betting on the outcome of a sports game, it's a real common and easy analogy. The winning party can use the signature that was written into the contract to decrypt the signing of the transaction to move the funds into their personal wallet. And that gets written as one transaction to the blockchain. But with Schnorr signatures and Taproot, there's a lot of really complex multi-signature capabilities that can be done now on Bitcoin. So this is one exciting development with Bitcoin, and being able to layer on smart contracts. Now, still Bitcoin's base layer is still very limited. Taproot's going to increase a little bit the transaction throughputs in theory, but there's still a lot of work to be done here. And the other thing that, from a Bitcoin maximalist view, these type of things are needed, right? And so let's take a minute to define Bitcoin maximalism. What I gather Bitcoin maximalists are really all about is keeping Bitcoin at the core of everything cryptocurrency, so that everything is really built on the Bitcoin base layer to make it as valuable as possible. And so that will require things like smart contracts. And to be able to do full decentralized finance, you have to build new capabilities. Now, Bitcoin's original intent was obviously this cashless, this peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And that use case, can be, you still need scale to make that possible. And obviously the Lightning Network is really at the forefront of trying to scale that. So when it gets back to the Bitcoin kind of maximalist view, they still want Bitcoin to be used for everything, and they kind of see Ethereum as a threat. Now, I don't share these views. I'm just trying to understand their viewpoint and share it with you guys. But another platform that's getting a lot of attention is Sovereign. And Sovereign is a DeFi, a decentralized exchange, and some finance aggregator here. You can do some yield farming. You can do margin trading on it. And you keep your keys. It's a really cool platform. It's supposed to be built on top of Bitcoin. I'm going to share this really cool video with you guys if you haven't seen it. Let me turn back on my desktop audio. Hopefully they don't flag me with any sort of copyright thing. But I'm going to go ahead and play their little video here. It's really cool.
World controlled by the fiat lords. Centralized exchanges were inevitably corrupted. Only one force stood for freedom.
One more Bitcoin. Lambo.
We'll help you. Give us your key. Trust us.
Lambo.
Hoodoo. Remember, not your keys.
Not my coins!
Before it's too late,
That part's so cheesy.
Sovereign, decentralized Bitcoin trading, and decentralized Bitcoin lending. I'm inflating!
This part I like this.
Defeat centralization, take back control.
Centralized wallet, don't be a hypocrite. Find yourself broke. You want to the bottom.
Stay sovereign.
The south, unless you change up. Satoshi gave us a code.
I thought that was a pretty funny little video. Very, very cheesy. But so Sovereign, you know, it's enabling, you know, on the base layer of Bitcoin trading decentralized finance. And here's the inevitable problem. And this is why I'm probably not going to make a whole video on it, because I can boil down the kind of the maximalist versus toxicity argument to this. I get that maximalists want to keep everything on Bitcoin and use Bitcoin for everything, but when you look at one of the key platforms that's enabling a lot of these capabilities built on top of platform, you go to their website, the very first thing you get is SOV is trading live. What is SOV? Well, this is the governance token for Sovereign, which is the platform that enables all of this on Bitcoin. So, you know, my kind of maximalist versus toxicity, you know, viewpoint is, look, at some point you're trading Ethereum for Sovereign, right? So if what you really want to happen as a Bitcoin maximalist is to build everything on Bitcoin, you're inevitably going to spawn a monster ecosystem of governance tokens and utility tokens completely outside of Bitcoin that are essential for things that have to do with that particular capability. If you're going to build all these layer 2s, and then all the applications that are built on top of them, they're all going to have unique governance tokens and utility tokens, and it's not going to do anything. It's only going to marginally change how much interest gets driven back into Bitcoin as opposed to being driven into like the Cardanos and the Ethereums, right? Ethereum isn't viewed as a threat. Yeah, it shouldn't be viewed as a threat. A lot of people at this Bitcoin conference, you know, in Miami, were going on and on about how it was, you know, they consider it a threat, really. And that, a lot of that comes back to, you know, from a Bitcoin maximalist viewpoint, they were really concerned with, you know, all these supposed S coins and other things that, you know, people were getting sucked into, which is a valid concern. But attacking projects like Ethereum because it's pulling interest away from Bitcoin kind of just, you know, that toxicity is just antithetical of what this whole ecosystem should be about. So I'm pretty much going to stop there. I wanted to talk about the charts, but you know, there's a couple of, I really wanted to share that, you know, I'm doing more research on DLCs. Now that Taproot's out, there's going to be some more interesting stuff like this. The development of DLCs with Taproot are really interesting, and then obviously Sovereign as a platform. But no matter what, you're going to have you know, a large ecosystem of things that pull interest away from Bitcoin potentially. But if Bitcoin's the whole maximalist view, I understand maximalists in that they want to put everything that they can on the Bitcoin base layer because it's the only truly decentralized network. That's the main thing. It's truly headless. It's truly decentralized. There's no founder that's still around that's pushing the agenda. So I get that, and that makes sense to me. I'll clip that out later as a video. But let's look at some charts now. That's what most people come here for. Yeah, Bitcoin. I hope ETH takes the market dominance. We'll see. I'm not, you know, I think Bitcoin is uniquely positioned because it is again, truly decentralized. It's truly headless. It has no founder. I think is where its real value is derived from. It's the original cryptocurrency, the original, you know, cash or electronic payment system, if you will, and it's truly headless. So that makes it very unique in the space. Now, as far as the chart goes, I've been waiting. Hold on one second. A little bit of sore throat. I've been just watching this level. I tweeted out about it. The 30. This is the weekly support level from way back over here. This will just show you the lines I've got. That's the January 4th weekly close and the January the 11th weekly open. That level is super important to me. I was waiting to see if we hold that. Now I've got on a lower time frame, my 4-hour time frame here, I've got this little trend line drawn in here. I'm being kind of defensive, and I'm not. I could have taken, you know, I really wanted to take an entry coming into 38.1, but I didn't. I ended up holding off just because I wanted to see what happens when we get back out to this trend line here. Well, the reason I'm being so defensive is at a, you know, again, my moving averages are not looking very healthy, right? I do think as we get this golden cross, we'll get a pop, but I don't know what happens after that. So I'm being careful with entries here. When I have my trading, ultimately my trade would be from, if I were to open a position at 38,200, say, I would be looking to take profit really quick into 40,600, and then hopefully on up to 42,000. But at 42,000 now, as we come into that, you're going to have the 50, which is coming down to the 200 right here, right above. So this whole area is going to be a lot of support. It'll be interesting to see what Bitcoin does into that. But for a trade, this is not the worst trade in the world, trying to buy on this support and see if we can't ride it back up. The problem is if we lose this, it's going to come out down pretty fast. I didn't know really where to place a stop loss. I had a hard time gauging my stop loss position. It was really the ultimate problem. That's why I haven't taken a trade yet, because I don't have a good level I feel comfortable in that will keep me from getting wicked out. That is a clear down. What I thought right here is below this trend line I have, about 36,000, right at 36,000. But that wasn't a very good risk reward setup for me, right? So if we get back above this trend line, then I can put my stop loss below this wick over here, and that gives me a much more comfortable stop loss. So if we get back above this, and then we get a signal, trade signal out here, yeah, I'm not entering as close as I could, but now I know where my stop loss can be. That gives me a good stop loss level. Otherwise, I was going to have to put a stop loss all the way down at 36,000, and the risk reward there wasn't as attractive as putting a stop loss, you know, a tighter stop loss up here. So that's really where I'm at right now. I'm really waiting to put on my first long trade on Bitcoin in a very long time. I did buy this dip. You know, I bought the dip a couple times, but I did buy this dip specifically over here. We'll just circle it. In general, I bought that dip for a long-term hold. That have no intention of trying to sell that for a while. That's where I'm at. Let's see what we got here. This is not a popular thumbnail. Interesting. Those BTC maximalists must bought when it was 2-3K. Yeah, they might have. A lot of them probably have, and they're just really wanting it to go way up. That's what I saw in that whole Miami conference, was a whole lot of people trying to pump their bags, which is not what Bitcoin's about. And you know, on one hand, I understand people want to make money, and that's fine, but can maybe be a little more transparent about it. And I think maybe those of us who are, I got into crypto more for the technology to begin with, and I happen to be trading it now. So I want to see it develop from a technology and an adoption standpoint. And I'm also a trader, so I could get in and out pretty agile. I'm not too worried about if Bitcoin's price isn't going to go up, fine, I just won't buy any more, or I'll buy a little bit more of it and trade a little bit of it. But I'm not going to, you know, I don't have my whole net worth at risk here. So maybe that's why I have a little bit different view too. I just bought. I'm a maximalist. There's nothing wrong with maximalism. That's the point I wanted to make, though. I get maximalist views. You know, the fully decentralized Bitcoin is the best chance that we have to usher in a new paradigm in money, right, globally, and to give access to a fair, hard money to everybody in the world. That makes sense. The toxicity piece is flaming projects that have real value, like namely Ethereum. Like I get them giving Cardano a hard time. Cool. Charles Hoskinson has done some kind of abrasive things. I get that. It's not completely done. Smart contracts aren't live. I get that too. I don't blame them for hating on Cardano, but Ethereum, hating on Ethereum, you know, where that comes from is in the Ethereum community. Some in the Ethereum community, if you saw Lex Friedman's podcast or video, you know, session he did with Vitalik, you know, the big problem that Bitcoiners have is the part of the Ethereum community that calls Ethereum money, right? Ethereum is a utility coin. That's what it is. It's utility and governance. So it's utility coin because you have to burn Ethereum, to use Ethereum, pay Ethereum to get your smart contracts, to pay for the computational usage that you're using on the network for your smart contract. That's how you pay for it, is Ethereum. And it's also a governance because you have some say in the network and the decisions made around what's happening with the network and development when you own Ethereum, in theory. So it's a governance, and it's really more of a utility token. And some people want to make Ethereum out to be a payment system. They want it to actually compete with Bitcoin on the a peer-to-peer cash network level, which that's a view I don't have. That's a view I don't agree with. I think the whole ecosystem is much better off knowing what is used where, and making sure we have things well understood. And a lot of this maybe comes back to people don't understand the technology as well as maybe they think they do. But yeah, Ethereum, at the end of the day, nobody should be thinking of it as a medium of exchange or something that you should be using on a day-to-day transaction. Its purpose in life is to pay, as a utility and governance around the Ethereum ecosystem and all that goes on there. It has immense value. It's immensely valuable. It's like owning a stock. I don't walk into my gas station and said, "Hey, can I buy my gas with fractional Google shares?" That's what Ethereum is, right? It's the same thing as like a stock. It has it's a utility for the underlying asset. But Bitcoin is different. Bitcoin, there's a world I'd like to see where I can walk into my gas station and swipe my phone, and boom, my Lightning wallet pays the vendor in Bitcoin. That to me makes sense. And that's where I think we should all kind of gel around and not be infighting. Ethereum does its part. It has its use cases. Sovereign does its part. But again, Sovereign is a smart contract platform built on top of Bitcoin's base layer, but it has to do a lot outside. So do these DLCs and any other technology, Lightning Network. It has to do a lot of work outside of Bitcoin. It just does transaction settlement on Bitcoin. So, Ethereum's doing the same thing. Ethereum's doing a lot of stuff. It just happens to be doing settlement of those transactions in Ether. But you can also do settlements of those transactions and other things, of course. And then Cardano is a different beast entirely because it has multi-asset on chain. So you can do a lot more with it. But that's just my thoughts on that whole thing. Let me go back to comments here. Thanks, Heath. It was awesome that you went live for the FOMC meeting earlier. I call it FOMC, sorry. FOMC, I think it's the right way. I don't see any difference between BTC and SHIB coin except the supply cap. Wow. Did you hear how they speak like a bunch of uneducated idiots trying to talking about scam coins when they're wrong? Example for BTC representing as well. Yeah. Is ETH token ownership decentralized is the real question. I do consider it. Yes, I think Ethereum is decentralized. I think it's a little bit of FUD when people throw Ethereum under the bus as being centralized. It's centralized in decision making largely, right? Vitalik has a huge voice and say in what happens, so that I get. It is centralized in decision making, but it's not centralized in mechanics. Technically, it's very decentralized. ETH has a lot of risk until Beacon Chain and ETH2. BTC is safer right now. I agree, Rai. Yeah, there's a lot of risk to Ethereum. Ethereum is a speculative asset. I mean, Bitcoin is a speculative asset, to be honest. It could be attacked. The money masters and the green movement could kill it tomorrow if they wanted to. That's just the truth. They couldn't kill the network, of course. The network would continue to function. But they can kill the value of it. And what most people are here for is number go up. And they can kill that real fast if they wanted to. Now, what it really was built for, I don't know if they're ever going to be able to kill that, because if people get desperate enough, like people in Venezuela and places like that, that their monetary system is just falling apart, they have an outlet now. They can use Bitcoin as the outlet to actually transact and survive. And they're using Bitcoin to survive, which is what it was built for. It wasn't built to make people, buy people Lambos. At least you know who owns it. How about BTC? I think it came out of nowhere. Well, I mean, Bitcoin came out pretty organically. So obviously the white paper, I firmly believe that the white paper was a consortium of people who worked together to put it out. I think there was obviously some sort of a leader, somebody organized it. I personally think it was Hal Finney, the late Hal Finney, who's no longer with us. But I could definitely be wrong about that. But whoever Satoshi was probably somebody who coordinated with several people and put out that white paper. Now, he might have had, Satoshi very well might have been the one that had the proof of work idea, came up with the proof of work and exactly the mechanisms around that, and then they authored the rest of the paper together. But all right, Vitalik is like Powell, and any POS system seems like it can become fiat easily with the centralization of control. So I think it's an unfair argument. I get the point. I understand that proof of stake could become centralized, and that, you know, people who end up owning a lot of the asset have all the say in it, and so forth and so on. And Ethereum doesn't have a supply cap, so forth and so on. But that argument is only valid if we're looking at Ethereum as a means of transaction and as a you know, something that we're going to use to store value. That's not what Ethereum is. And so people that make that argument are making that argument because, you know, they don't think it's smart to hold Ethereum because we don't know that it's going to keep going up and up and up. First of all, or they don't want to see it being used as a payment system, which I get that. But that argument, again, it only holds water as far as I'm concerned if you're looking at Ethereum as more than a utility. And if it's just a utility, there are ways to enforce decentralization of that utility asset. And so, namely around the staking pools, right? So you look at how you know, there's the K value that Cardano is using to make sure that smaller pools are more incentivized over larger pools. So that'll help prevent these large pools from being formed who take over the network. Now, the argument is obviously made that, well, a big entity like Coinbase can just generate a whole lot of small pools. And that's true. But there's also ways to make sure that the users are informed that these pools all belong to this one big entity. And as long as the user base is aware of that, they can make sure that they're staking with entities outside that one core entity. And the network and the governance can also de-incentivize big players who are getting too big, that are basically buying their way into that power. And also, if you look at like Charles Hoskinson specifically did a video on this recently, and this is what I've been talking about, why I think Bitcoin's going to go to proof of stake, quote unquote. I don't think Bitcoin's going to go to true proof of stake as we think of it with you know, just the number of Bitcoin that you have is your stake in the network, right? I think the word stake obviously can mean lots of things, and Charles started talking about this N plus. You know, there's a multiple factors that you can put in to equate to stake. So your stake could actually be maybe the number of coins you hold, but also it could be, you know, rewarding different types of good behavior. That could be how much uptime your pool. If your pool is very reliable, highly, you know, resilient, and has a lot of uptime, maybe you can be a little bit further rewarded for that. It can also be, and you could also, so you can be minting blocks maybe slightly more than others. It can reward good behavior. It can also reward compute power that you provide to the network. So as smart contracts get more complex, they are going to require computational power. They're also going to require a lot of disk space. So maybe you reward people who are willing to store the full blocks versus truncated versions of the blocks, right? So if you have to store all of the full history of the blockchain, it's a lot of transactional data you have to store. And so maybe nodes that are running full, you know, and supplying full storage can be rewarded a little bit more than ones that are doing a truncated version of it. Things like that. So there's lots of ways to incentivize the network and prevent this, you know, a couple of large entities from taking over. So I think people just they conflate this idea that, okay, if control is simply the number of coins that you have, then it can be taken over. Yeah, that's true if it were that way and stayed that way, and there was no other mechanism to deal with that. But there are mechanisms to deal with it, you know, in multiple ways. So that's the thing that you have to keep in mind when you look at proof of stake and those systems. This is why BTC falls to 10K now. No one can save their money. If ETH goes to almost zero, let's say for the sake of argument, you can catch Vitalik at least. Okay, I'm just going to read this. Narwhal, we need to appreciate that centralization isn't 100% a bad thing. It just seems that way early on. What's important is that we have a viable decentralized option, provide check and balance. And I agree with that, right? Let's go look at Cardano and Ethereum charts here real fast while we talk about this. So these are the two, obviously, I support all these in green up here. I trade. I really support these projects. Top, 5 right here. Link, ETH, DOT, ADA, Bitcoin. I think they're all very valuable. And Steller, I like Steller too. So I support it. I don't really support Litecoin, but it's super liquid, very great trading asset. And I don't mind Charlie Lee, but it's not. I just don't think it has much of a future. All right, nonetheless, let's look at what's Polkadot been doing. So Polkadot's obviously not looking great. Could be a great buying opportunity, but given this chart, given that I don't think the bounce is done yet on Bitcoin dominance, I haven't been really watching close my altcoin charts. What I'm waiting for is if Bitcoin can break out here, then I'm going to see, as Bitcoin makes its next move, it should outperform the altcoins. Once Bitcoin makes the new peak, where I'll be looking to go is then to rotate back into some alts once Bitcoin kind of makes its next peak, wherever that may be. If it comes into the all-time high, wherever it's going to consolidate next after breaking out, that's where the altcoins should get some traction, right? So once we finally break out of this, whatever we're going to do here, and the meat of this move here, Bitcoin's going to probably, that's where it's going to regain its dominance. And then when Bitcoin consolidates again, we'll probably see a nice pop in altcoins, so it's to give us some more trading opportunities in altcoins. That's my guess. That's my thesis. That's what I'm working off of right now. So I'm really, really focused on Bitcoin. But I love Cardano's chart. I was looking at this earlier for a trade. You see right here, this is a CTM entry. This downtrend, breakout, retest, resumption right now in Cardano. Right? So I'm probably going to look at putting something on here pretty soon, finally. Now, these are really early aggressive entries, so I got to keep a fairly tight stop loss and be okay with just getting stopped out. But this one's going to give me the opportunity to put a tight stop loss under here. So we broke this, right? So I've got these two levels I'm working with, so I can put my stop down here. More comfortable stop would be way down here at 134-ish. But I'm going to keep tight stops in all these trades coming up here that we're finally getting mechanism trades. Ethereum's been looking fantastic. So I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago, and I was kind of, bearish on it because I drew this pattern in here. But what's happened is I had this trend line that I don't know if I drew it that night or the day or after. And what I'm looking at is this structure is, I like this structure here if this plays out. So we might end up saving that other structure that I had might have been the most valid structure. So we've got this. Now normally these often will break down, right? But this can break out of the way. So if this plays out, I'll be watching for a break of this. So I'm really watching for a break of 2800 right now to put a trade on Ethereum. And I was also watching, this wasn't as well defined as the Cardano one, so I don't feel comfortable with that, a breakout of that. I'm really looking for a break of this structure that I'm seeing kind of form here. When I put that trend line on there, and I see that, obviously that resistance up there, a break of 2800 to the upside would be a nice place to trade. Cardano, we've had some more touches coming down off of this, so I'm more comfortable in this breakout here, in that pattern. But also, we've maintained a really strong uptrend on Cardano, so never lost the 120. So I'm liking Cardano as far as charts go. So I'm kind of weaving a little bit weaving in here my talk about tech versus talk about the charts. We are in alignment. So yeah, you're already rewarded for compute power and uptime. Yeah, I guess ETH is a platform that is marginally better maybe than AWS, GCP, or Azure. I see it as a check against cloud providers, but not as a replacement. Oh yeah, ETH can't do. ETH is not well suited for large scale compute, right? It doesn't scale, right? That's the thing. The EVM is shared across the world, so whenever you implement a smart contract on Ethereum, you're having thousands of computers do that same thing over and over and over again. So it's very inefficient from a compute standpoint. So it's never going to replace like a cloud provider is trying to be super efficient with compute and give you a very large pool of compute resources that you can spread your workload across. A little bit different. Now, eventually there probably will be a decentralized form of cloud computing, but that's going to take some work. The infrastructure ramifications around that are very difficult. Just the performance, being able to have that done with modest performance, it's going to take some work. But there will be trade-offs. And Michael also says storage doesn't have to be handled by Bitcoin Core. That would be on a sidechain. And if that's too centralized, you can use AWS. The incentive to provide value decentralized naturally is decentralized. Yeah, Michael, I wasn't talking about necessarily with Bitcoin. My thing with proof of stake is the stake, or there's all these hybrid. There's a lot of work around like proof of idle would be a really clear, an easy example of how Bitcoin could move off of the very energy intensive proof of work that it has today into something that's less energy intensive. And so what proof of idle is just a simple example. It's basically proof of idle, if you want to look it up, POI, I believe. Basically, this is just an example. There's many ways to do this, but it's a simple example. Proof of idle basically says, okay, all these miners can actually idle down, and we're going to have some other, we're going to take all of your computational capabilities that you have proven that you have as far as work goes, and we're going to have you idle down and do a true randomness generation and only spin up full proof of work when there's an attacker. So and there's a lot of nuance to this, but basically it allows, you can think of it as it allows miners to idle and use minimal power usage, just the fans are running, but the ASIC isn't doing anything unless there's a need to engage the full proof of work to secure the network, right? It's a very simple example, but there are ways to reduce the power consumption. There's another way would be to make it, the word stake, instead of how many Bitcoin you hold, stake could be a metric of taking the computational power you're providing to the network, doing some random number generation on the computational power that you have that you're providing, and maybe storage or whatever else, and having randomness that is rooted still in physics decide the next miner to mint that block. And so there's work being done around that, and there's some work around that. Like I said, the third idea is to have multiple projects. So what Sovereign uses is, I forget exactly what they call it, but they're using the base layer. That's something really cool about Sovereign. I should have said that earlier about Sovereign. They're actually using Bitcoin's base layer, and so they're tacking on. So basically, in the proof of work network, you compute billions or trillions of possible combinations of the Merkle tree and Nance combination and generate the hash to try to find that leading the number of leading zeros you need in the resulting hash. And so you have one out of the whole network of that 10-minute. It takes about roughly 10 minutes for somebody in the network to find a hash that works. Sometimes a little bit less than 10, sometimes a little more than 10, but it's completely random and it's driven by physics underlined by randomness in the quantum realm, basically. And so you can borrow all those trillions of unused combinations, and you can borrow that power to have other proof of work side chains using that, and the next best miners can be selected to mine sovereign blocks, basically. And so that's how Sovereign works. It tacks onto the base layer. So that's really cool. That is adding efficiency to the Bitcoin network. Sovereign does have the power of the Bitcoin network behind it to secure it once the transactions are finalized. Now, there's some, I don't call it Ethereum. There's some intermediate time frame there where there's some question as to how secure that is, and I need to do some more digging on that piece. Holy spam! Oh my goodness! I need some mods on here. All right, Heath, I made you a moderator. Thanks, man. Crazy spam. No problem, Cameron. Anyway, so Sovereign's cool in that respect. There's a lot of ways that the Bitcoin network, the proof of work network, can be optimized to use a lot less. Point is, a lot of work being done. At some point, there's going to be some innovation that comes along that makes it's the Bitcoiners can have everything that they want. They can have their true randomness rooted in physics while having a lot less power usage. That's the main thing I keep getting at. And I think that they should be working in earnest to try to find those solutions. Because if they can use less power, then they can shut up all the people that are in the green movement and everybody else and just get them out of their way and move on and march forward. The other thing is that if there's going to be a lot better options for scaling with that. If you can do that without the true brute force proof of work network that they have now, but still achieve the same exact goals, you can probably move the network forward as well, the base layer forward. Personally, I see a future where energy availability is not an issue. I believe advanced civilizations generate and utilize a lot of energy. My take on Sol. Sol is cool. There was something about it. Sol's cheats. I don't like cheaters, and they're a cheater. They use DPoS still. As long as they have this, where is it at? This is a form of centralization. So they use proof of history, which is cool. They have some really cool stuff that they do, but they still use, here it is. Their proof of stake is still a decentralized. It's a delegated proof of stake, and so basically what they're doing is they're taking all of the potential staking pools, and they're electing a small number to do the transaction finality, and so. And consensus, and so that's really kind of a hack. It's a centralization hack. So any crypto that has DPoS from a long-term investment perspective, I don't typically buy them because I think that's a shortcut that they've taken. And last I checked, they actually are still doing DPoS. Now, if they moved off of it, I want to know. But I'm pretty sure if you go check their actual documentation, you go look it up. Now let's deposit. Pretty sure. Pretty sure there's still DPoS. Let's go do some more digging here. Blah, 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 blah. They use. Does it say DPoS in their actual? Yeah, here's a link to a delegated proof of stake. I mean, yeah, you look at like, okay, so securities.io still says that the Solana consensus mechanism is a delegated proof of stake network. As long as that's the case, I think it's kind of a hack. And just anyway. So that's the only. Solana is very cool in a lot of ways, but when you take shortcuts like that, I'm just, you know, a lot of them have taken that same shortcut. So not something I'm super interested in. But Jordan's here. Hey, Jordan. Hey, everybody. This discussion is super helpful. Well, good. I'm glad you find this discussion helpful. I wanted to do a different discussion. I'm kind of actually just experimenting with different types of topics and see what people are interested in, what they're not interested in. Yeah, so back to the charts. Still waiting to see what happens here. Let me throw my trade ID on here. Where's that trade ID? Long position. It's weird. A trading view changed something. Does anybody know the setting? So anytime I click on one of these features to add something to the chart, the next time I click, instead of like allowing me to select it and move it, it always wants me to, or it always creates another one of those objects. That didn't used to happen. All right, so basically this is what I'm kind of looking at. We get a breakout here, breakout, retest, resumption of this. What I want to see is it break out over here of this trend line. And hopefully we get a good entry signal right around there. And then if we get a breakout there, I'll be looking to push that. See, we had that wick high up here. I'll be looking to push that all the way to 42. So I think that's where we'll go. That'll give me a nice tighter stop like I talked about. That'd be my trade idea. But, you know, we could have a really strong breakout candle too, which negates all that. We'll see what the trade. We'll see what it looks like. That's the initial trade setup potentially. Again, to recap here, the reason I haven't taken an entry, a Heath style entry coming out right onto this right here, is I'm defensive because of the downtrend we're in and the way the SMAs look. Also, I felt like my stop needed to be either way down here, because I wanted to get well below this trend line here, and I couldn't find a good level to get below that trend line at the level I like, so I had to put my stop. As of right now, if I were to take this entry, which is kind of trying to present itself, I would have, on a 4-hour, it would be a 4-hour entry. Like a 12-hour entry is what I'm really looking for. Would be also a break of this. I would need to put my stop way down here, and my take profit, and my initial take profit is still 42. Now, hopefully I can run it a lot longer than that, but it's not too attractive. But if I can get a breakout of this little downtrend, then that changes everything. Because if I get a breakout here, then I can put a super tight stop under here. I know I'm wrong pretty quick, and that gives me a lot better risk reward. So that's what I'm looking to do. My first long trade on Bitcoin in a long time. Now, I should have probably bought spot coming into here, but I'm just still kind of monitoring. Again, long term. Now, for the millionth time, I don't think this death cross is the end all be all. We've had death crosses before, especially March 2020, that it ended up, we just went up from there. So as soon as we crossed, we just went up. So I don't see any. And the reason I think, I said this last time I went live, the reason I think this is not super important is because crypto trades 24/7. This is more important for equities because a 50-day moving average is a lot different when you're talking about an asset that trades 8 to 5 Monday through Friday versus an asset that's trading 24/7. So 50 days and 200 days mean different things to equities than they do to crypto. CCM, thank you, Heath. Appreciate that. My take on Matic, from a technology standpoint, I love Matic. I think Matic is the dark horse. I've said it a bunch. As far as like, you know, Cardano, Polkadot, Matic's the dark horse because the whole layer 2 scaling thing. I can see a world where Matic is like a mega layer 2 solution that aggregates a lot of other platforms and negates the value of layer 1 platforms altogether. So I can see that world coming together where Polkadot, Cardano, Algorand, EOS, Ethereum, whoever else, Zalika, they all become obfuscated to everybody's going to use this Uber layer 2 in Matic, and Matic will snap into the different layer 1 platforms and use them for what they do best, and everything's going to be rolled up through a layer 2. So I love Matic. Here's the structure I have on it right now. From a trade perspective, I mean, you've got support below here and here. I think I did outline, obviously if you can get above, the only problem I have, and there's your resistance right there. These are my, I'm going to just throw some Heath levels on here to make it simple. You have something right here too. Yeah, I mean, I think a trade of, let's just a Matic BTC. Let me go to my Matic USD. Sorry, I have a different chart for that. I did, yeah, I was outlining a trade our last live stream. We can break outside of this. The only problem is we only have 2 touches here. I don't have a really high conviction on this, but this would have been a nice entry signal. Let's see here. Did we ever get a 12? Did we get a 4? We never got a CTM entry signal really, or not a clean one anyway. So yeah, I'd still be waiting for a CTM entry signal above this level we got right here, 152. And now that you're below that, though, let's see if we've had a daily close. Yeah. So now we've had a different daily close. So let's throw this over here. I'm gonna draw. What I do is when these things fail to really show a good breakout, it's like a false breakout. I just continue to move my trend line to the outer touches until I get a clear breakout. So this is what I'd be looking at now. Now, what I'd be looking for personally is a breakout of this downtrend, and then I'd want the CTM entry to be above this level. Right? Then you're going to come into resistance right here so that you can manage your trade accordingly. Now, ultimately, you can get back up here. But, from a technology perspective, I love Matic anyway. From a trade, you know, it's still definitely got an uptrend. I'm going to throw a moving average on here. Just I don't use moving averages at all for altcoins, but I just want to see where this is actually at. Oh, I can't. There's not a two. That's too long. One. There's a 50 at. There's your 50 coming in right there. So yeah, I mean the 50 is still moving up, and it's bounced off the 50. I take zero note of that on altcoins. I don't care. This doesn't matter to me at all. Like I don't. What the daily moving averages are doing doesn't. I care much more about patterns and structure. Very much horizontal levels and patterns are what I care about on altcoins. That's what works. Moving averages and stuff don't work on altcoins. But yeah, as a potential, you know, we're getting some good consolidation here, so we're going to get a decision on Bitcoin soon. And when Bitcoin decides which way he's going to go, I talked about this earlier in the stream. Just to recap again one more time, I'm not looking to take trades on altcoins really, unless it's really obvious, until Bitcoin breaks out and then consolidates again. So it's my opinion that. It's my opinion that when we break out here, Bitcoin dominance, Bitcoin's going to go on a really strong run. It's my opinion, and probably back into the prior all-time. It'll find resistance somewhere, maybe in the 50s, in the 60s. But when Bitcoin does run, Bitcoin dominance is going to pop, and I'm not looking for trades on altcoins until we run into resistance. And the thing, here's what I'm looking at, right? We need to break these levels. Your next resistance is really going to be, to me, at the 120 here. We need to break through that fast, right? But then the 65K level, that'll be the next time I see altcoins making a good run, when Bitcoin comes into some resistance. But I'm not going to be super zealous about altcoin trades until we're really completely done with the parabolic move on Bitcoin, and I'll tell you why. Let's go back to Bitcoin dominance. A little history on this. So 2017 app. It got real volatile over here, but you see how. So the Bitcoin dominance. We did make a nice run up into November, and then this spike down, I think, was just a quick wick that we could mostly ignore. I don't remember exactly what happened on that day, and that was a concurrent sell-off when Ethereum made a move. But you know, we had a nice consolidation through here after it fell off a cliff, and then it made its parabolic move, and then alt season was something else to behold. This is, you know, largely sideways, with Bitcoin having some strength. So I want to avoid being too active and what's ultimately going to be sideways and chop. I'd rather just be invested in Bitcoin, because when Bitcoin is down here at these levels that we're in. Now again, if there's really good trade setups, I'll take them. I'm not seeing a whole lot just yet. But let's zoom out here just a little bit. Yeah, see, I still expect this to make a good solid run to at least 57, 61, maybe even up to the high 60s. We'll see where it goes when it makes its run. But obviously we had this consolidation, then Bitcoin just kind of unexpectedly broke out. I expect the same thing. So I really want to be focused on Bitcoin until Bitcoin really makes its parabolic top, and then I'll get back into altcoins. Unless I see a clear opportunity, I'm not going to be really aggressively playing altcoins. Like this is a great opportunity for me. I like this setup on Cardano. And projects like Cardano that I see in the horizon, a lot of potential for hype, a lot of potential for you know, strong price action. So Cardano's obviously, Alonzo hard fork's going to come up here pretty soon. You're going to have a lot of hype around that. So this is one to watch for sure for a nice big move when that goes live. Polkadot, they've got parachain auctions that are continuing to happen. Parachain slots are continuing to be awarded, which is a big deal to their network and the development of their network. So Polkadot's one to worth watching because of that. And everything else, you know, it's really just going to be an ancillary play to Bitcoin as far as especially like Litecoin. Now, granted, Litecoin had its really big move, didn't it, versus BTC, and we're coming back in that channel I've always had on here. Failed to break out the big pattern is this one up here with this way on auto. Right, I was waiting to see if we had a breakout there. But yeah, we're coming back into the top of that channel that I had been watching. So that's not too terribly interesting right now. It's kind of resuming its downtrend. That little pop was a beautiful play, but now it's no longer too terribly interesting unless you want to short it. Which I'm not shorting crypto right now. I don't feel comfortable shorting crypto. I know it looks like we're in a bear market. It feels like a big fake out to me, so I'm just gonna wait for confirmation. But anyway, all that said, I'm really waiting on Bitcoin to develop, and then I'll go from there. All right, let's take a look at comments. The markets are not crashing. Another insolvency event alert. Huge crisis coming soon. Stock market collapse does not mean an economy collapse. Yeah, so I was looking at the stock charts earlier. I'm just going to give you just my very broad opinion on the markets. I've been, remember I started with the CTM community because I thought the markets were going to crash and they never did, and I was getting destroyed trying to short them, and so Jordan saved me a lot of pain. I finally just gave up and got out and started learning and listening. But yeah, this whole move is just blowing my mind this whole time. But the dollar's been being devalued so much, and this is where money's going. I do think we're going to have, I just look at these charts. I've got this green line still on here. I think this is a level to watch for a really bad, what was that? Is that 10%? 12, 15% still? Let's see where this is coming off to. I think a little 10%, a 10% correction is probably not the end of the world, and probably pretty healthy for some of these broader markets, but I don't see anything more than a 10% myself. Yeah, so that's why I had that on there. I've got that support level. I forgot why I drew that one in there, but at one point, I was looking at maybe this sell-off here. I was looking at maybe where we could get down to. Don't know exactly, but it's a little bit over 10% off. I think a 10% haircut probably makes sense. With the dollar doing its thing over here, trying to bounce back a little bit, but obviously metals were under pressure too. I was interested in, again, I don't think the Bitcoin trade's over with yet, so I'm not too terribly interested, but I was starting to get interested in taking some trades or long-term position trades on the dollar if we were going to break out up here. So I was watching real close for a breakout. I think Heath did it, talked about it in his live stream. I kind of expected it to hit right at is this the prior all-time high? I think 1919 from way back. I expected it to hit that level and then come back to 1814 to retest. That's all I was looking for, and sure enough, it has. So, but I don't think the crypto trade's quite done, so I don't really want to divide my interest or my capital into these trades just yet. But I was just kind of looking at the broad markets today during the FOMC meeting, and I can't not look at this chart and think, okay, yeah, a 10% haircut is in order, but what was this, that big 30% sell-off? I don't think we have that ahead of us, obviously. But yeah. So those of you calling for a crash on equity markets, I don't know that you're going to get a crash. You might get a little 10% corrections. That would be another 13% over there. I don't know what everybody in the comments thinks, but I think some consolidation on the equities would be fair. I have a feeling it's a dead cat bounce. Muhammad, what's a dead cat bounce? Not being a bear, just have a feeling. You're all in great. You are all great. Oh, thanks. Yeah, Jordan, everybody here is awesome. Hey, what are your thoughts on the low volume after FOMC? I don't have any good thoughts on low volume after FOMC. Do you mean that the broad markets were low volume, or you mean like a specific instrument like Bitcoin? Let's look at Bitcoin's volume. Hold on a second. Yeah, but Bitcoin was really low volume today. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's not, it's pretty low. We've been pretty low volume here since the sell-off. So let's go back to maybe 6 months. Yeah, so we had pretty good volume at that sell-off. What was that going on a month ago now? 516? Was the sell-off 516? Let me double check, make sure I'm not. Yeah, that big sell-off, we had pretty good volume. But it's been pretty muted volume since then. On Bitcoin specifically. Yeah, I didn't look at the broad markets volume, so I don't have a good thought for you there. Sorry. Our macro masters, Jordan or Heath or Lynn Alden or somebody could probably give you more information on that. Cardano and Polkadot have all the positive hype. The thesis would be the first time coin arrivals perform. Sorry, I'm reading comments. Best in their first cycle. Yeah, that's kind of true. Cardano was around last cycle. Polkadot wasn't, but Cardano was. So Cardano, you know, has its. Oh wait, was Polkadot technically trading? So there was our all-time high in the 2018 alt cycle for Cardano. Polkadot, I don't think was trading back then. Yeah, I don't think it was. Pretty sure it wasn't. Yeah, this is all not financial advice. My goodness, I might have forgot to start with that. I'm going to throw that in here now that we're hopefully not too late. So anything I say, I'm not a licensed financial advisor. This is just education, entertainment, and I'm probably wrong. And if you listen to my trade ideas, you're probably going to lose all your money and end up living in a van down by the river with Boneholder and Doge. But hopefully you use sound risk management and you do your own research, and you don't need to rely on me anyway. You're just listening to me for my opinion and then forming your own opinion based on that. That's the best way to do it for sure. All right, guys. No problem, Indiana Jones. Well, Indiana Jones, you're way more awesome than I am. Uncovering priceless artifacts. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap up here. Yeah, so, I don't know, I'm losing my interest in doing a Bitcoin maximalism dedicated video just because I don't want to be more divisive than I have to be. I wanted to point out the Bitcoin, the kind of the case, the technology, some interesting things I'm continuing to research. But this topic goes very, very deep, and so it's quite complex, and it's going to take me a while to really get my head wrapped around everything with how DLCs work. I have a rough high-level idea right now, but it's going to take me a bit to really get up to speed on it. Sovereign I've got a much better feel on, but DLCs, they're kind of complex. So I'll continue to share that as I research it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like I said, I did this. Hold on, let me pull something up here real fast before I go. Last thing. I need to resurrect this. So at some point I had created a Crypto 101 and where I had talked about, you know, some kind of fundamentals of crypto, and I should probably get back to you know, developing this. But one of the things we started to do is define, you know, what are utility versus, or like platforms, what are platforms, utility, DeFi, you know, what are currency. And so things that are trying to be a form of currency. Ultimately, I think if we all understand that no matter if you use Bitcoin at the base layer or something else, you're still going to have all of these external use cases. So if Bitcoin's your platform, okay, fine, you take that away. But Ethereum is also a utility coin, and it's a governance coin for, but you know, you would replace Ethereum with Sovereign over here, which is governance, really. That's the governance coin. But you get the idea. Is you might replace, if you replace these platforms and just have Bitcoin as the core layer 1 platform, you're still going to have a lot of these other capabilities, these other applications built on top of it, and then you're going to have platforms is going to change from platforms to governance. You have governance tokens for all your layer 2 platforms. So you're going to be trading what we call platforms today for governance tokens tomorrow. So this is why I think just a more inclusive culture within the crypto community makes sense because, you know, no matter what, you're going to have an explosion of platforms and applications being built on top of any layer 1 platform. And like we talked about with Matic, the layer 2 platforms could rule the day when it's all said and done, and the layer 1s are relegated to what do they do best, and the layer 2s are going to snap into the layer 1s that make sense for specific use cases. But, you know, no matter how you slice it, you can't get, Bitcoin will never be the end-all be-all of crypto. It just can't be, because the way Bitcoin's base layer is built, it's dependent on external layer 2 scaling platforms, which inevitably are going to spawn an unlimited amount of all these other tokens for different use cases. So that's my biggest takeaway. And yeah, it's all good stuff. Development of all of it together, I think Bitcoin needs to stay very much focused on the initial purpose of the peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And if through Lightning Network, through Taproot, and some other scaling, and then if you layer on, you know, Sovereign's doing with being able to do decentralized finance on top of, you know, and exchange on top of Bitcoin, and then you have some basic smart contracts like the DLCs are providing smart contract functionality for really critical things that you want to have smart contracts that are directly tied to Bitcoin. That all makes sense, the development of that. So I'm like pro-development. For me personally, I'm pro-development of all these things. I think Bitcoin should always be the core. I think it should always be the reserve currency of crypto, and I think it's the currency that the world should use to do day-to-day transactions. So it's super important, but I don't think that should come at the exclusion of anything else. That's my take on it. You guys have a good night. I'm going to light up Doge-wave. I'm super tired, and I want to go finish watching Loki and get to bed. So I started watching Loki, and I think my wife wants to watch it. So far, so good. I like those shows. They're pretty, I can just turn off my brain and watch a show. All right, good night, everybody.